Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Smug Guy Wants to Order for the Table, so I make sure he gets his wish. I worked as a server for a small brand new family-owned restaurant. The place was one step below white tablecloth and had a bar on one side with the restaurant on the other. The owners were awesome and provided industry professionals to train us on how best to treat a customer and maximize our tips. As an example of how effective this training was, on opening day I dropped an entire tray of drinks down a woman's back, yet this family returned several more times and would only let me serve them. Owner brought them a parka the first time they returned. One technique we were taught was to establish who was paying from social cues and make sure they are happy. If a couple comes in and you believe the man is paying, make the woman feel like a queen. When it's time to pay, she'll likely encourage a higher tip. Incredibly effective. As I finish taking an order, I notice a family of 4 being sat in my section and stop by immediately to introduce myself. My assessment is this: husband and wife, very nicely dressed. Their beautiful early 20s daughter, my age, and what I gather is her boyfriend wearing a suit and tie. Dad is very clearly paying, but aspiring businessman here interrupts mom when she's ordering her drink to inform me he'll be ordering for the table. If looks could kill, the father would have taken out this young man and probably 10 people in the bar area. Oh, buddy, your night is not going to go the way you thought. Every time I returned to the table I would face him, only look at and talk to him, turning my back to the father. Daughter asked for something, I don't remember what, and without ever acknowledging her, I asked him, may she have that? He barely stammered out a yes. When I brought the bill, I set it right in front of him. They hung around for a while and I continued to check in and refill drinks while the bill remained untouched. I think Dad was making him sweat. Eventually, Dad grabs the bill and puts his card in. I brought back the receipt and thanked the young man for coming in and walked away. I was returning from another table when they were getting up from the table and the young guy moved to the door at a speed that made lightning look slow. The other 3 were all smiles and the dad looks across the dining room and mouthed, "Thank you." I gave him a smile and a nod and continued on my way. The tip amount is a number I don't remember, but I know it was good. Really good. It must have been a small wedding because I never received an invite. Next one is titled, Don't want to listen to the guy who's been on his machine for 30 years? Guess you don't need your fingers. Back in the early 2000s, I was a management trainee for a manufacturing company in the UK, and I was responsible for quality control and production management. I was 22 years old, keen as punch and ready to change the world. About 11 months into the role, I got a new boss, let's call him Fred. Fred was also the company owner's son and was basically a 45-year-old giant toddler who had only ever been a drug dealer, DJ, and now stood to inherit the entire company. His management style was, let's say, interesting, and he would deviate from screaming at you for the most benign thing ever to, I can't deal with the pressure so I'll go home for the day, in a matter of hours. He also thought he was a manufacturing genius. His ideas were batshit crazy, but he would scream at anyone who questioned him. There was a 52-year-old machine operative, let's call him Roy, who has worked on the same machine for over 30 years. Roy could tell when his machine was 2 weeks away from a breakdown, just because it sounded different. He was truly at one with his machine. Fred decided that we would modify Roy's machine so that we could extend the range of products we could manufacture. In order to do this, he decided that we would add an additional spindle to the machine. The problem was that each product would finish at a different time and you would need to remove a product from the machine while the other one was still spinning. Roy protested and said he'd never use it, but Fred went ahead and modified it over the weekend with a subcontractor. On Monday, Roy said, "You must be joking, I'm not using that." Fred said, "You will use it, or you'll be looking for a new job tomorrow." Roy said, "It's not safe and I won't use it. If you try to make me I will report you to the HSE." And then Fred said, "If you report me, I'll make sure you don't find work ever again." So Roy smiled and said, "Okay, Fine, I'll load the next job, but you can run it first. Roy loaded on his next job and took 2 steps back. He also looked at me and said, "Stand back." Fred started the machine and all went well, for about 30 seconds. The first job had reached the diameter required and Fred pressed stop. However, he now had to lean over the other job that was still running at 2000 RPM. I didn't see it happen, but I heard an awful scream and then saw blood squirting everywhere. Fred fainted onto the machine, narrowly missing the spindle with his face and greasy long black hair. We pressed the emergency stop and picked him up, and it was then I spotted his fingers in the machine. I picked up 2 middle fingers and gave them to a colleague to put into a freezer bag, which was a waste of time because they couldn't reattach them, they were too mangled. Fred never came back to work. Apparently, he told his father he wasn't cut out for running the company, and I also left about 6 months later. I saw recently that it was bought out in a management buyout and good old Roy was the operations director. Good for him. Next one is titled, "I'm not allowed to take the full break I'm entitled to?" Alright, enjoy getting in trouble. I work at a large company that we like to call Wally World. Wally World has a break policy where you are allowed to take an hour-long, unpaid, meal break, but it has to at least be 30 minutes. Now a lot of the older people don't mind taking just 30 minutes, but it's common rule that minors should follow the hour-long meal schedule. I was told that anytime I was getting a meal break, I could take an hour. I typically only do 45 minutes, but still long enough for me. The thing is, that minors can't work longer than 30 hours a week, be it during a normal school week. I average 28 hours a week. That's 2 8-hour shifts on the weekend, and 3 6-hour shifts during the weekdays typically. I'm nearing 6 months and have always taken a 45-minute long meal break. Now I'm suddenly being told that if I work 6 hours then I should only be taking a 30-minute meal break. My department was very insistent on that for anyone working 6 hours. I was confused seeing as all the new hires could take hour-long meals during their 6-hour shifts, but I suddenly couldn't. At the time I didn't realize this, but if I take only a 30-minute lunch with those shifts then I would be going over the time I was allowed to work. 7 plus 7 plus 5.5 plus 5.5 plus 5.5 equals 30.5. I started to question it all, and it took a few weeks, of going over 30 hours, to finally ball up and talk to my store's personnel about it. At first she was confused, but after I explained it all and went into the website to show the exact times I had been clocking in and out, she just told me to follow my schedule and I thought that was that. Of course my department managers weren't too happy, but they suddenly stopped telling me to take shorter breaks and started asking if I would be willing to take shorter breaks. I didn't realize that they actually got in trouble until an older coworker overheard the managers talking about scheduling all the breaks when I'm not supposed to take 30 minutes anymore. Edit. I really don't plan on leaving Wally World. Mostly because I live in a small town and Wally World pays me the best. I've already had 2 jobs before this, and so far Wally World has been the best. The only reason I got into this issue is because I struggle to speak up for myself, but I've definitely made big strides in that in recent years. I'll be switching departments on the first day of May thankfully. Once I move out to college though I'll definitely try my best to get an adult job, but for now I'm fine with where I stand and happy with the bonuses, be it illegal. Next one is titled, "The armrest is yours and the window is mine?" Here, let me just put my book down. So this happened to me today on my flight on a particularly sunny morning. I booked a window seat, love me some window on an airplane, and I ended up sitting next to a man in his mid-30s who took an outrageous amount of selfies on the plane to document his travels, I assume. This already put a bad taste in my mouth, but to each his own. Our side of the plane only had 2 seats, so it was just him and me. We did some armrest dancing and eventually reached what I thought was an unspoken agreement that I would have my elbow on the front side of the armrest while he would take the back. I thought it worked out pretty nicely, so we both got what we wanted. So we take off and he ended up falling asleep. I pop my headphones in for some hip-hop and open up a book I've been meaning to read for quite some time. As we reach 10,000 feet, it's quite sunny, like almost unbearably so. But I enjoy being able to see out my window while flying, so I kept my window open. I felt bad and wanted selfie bro, SB. to be able to stay asleep, so I lifted my book just right so that it blocked all sunlight from SB. That way, I could enjoy my book in my window, and SB could get some sleep. Fast forward about 30 minutes when Selfie Bro woke up. SB aggressively moves arm forward so as to displace mine. Me. Did I do something to upset you? SB. You're taking up the whole armrest. You have a window. I get the armrest. Me. Okay. I move my arm and my book. As I set my book down, the sunlight that was previously blocked now shines directly on SB's face. He grunts as he tries to reposition himself to get out of the light. I lean back on my seat so he can get the full sunlight experience. I return to reading my book. SB asks me to close the window and I pretend to not hear him. SB can't get comfortable, and he doesn't want to turn the other way because there's a small child who won't stop staring right at him. You can have the armrest, SB. Next one is titled, When I Get a Minute, eh? Sure. Many moons ago, when I was in my early 20s, I was working as a server in the huge Earth globe at the happiest place on Earth. I had only been there for maybe 3 months, but my ridiculous knowledge of the tons of movie memorabilia scattered throughout the restaurant made me a pretty fun server to have. I am an over-actor and as a server, was quite fun and entertaining. As such, management would give me tables that were upset because I could almost always reverse that attitude and produce happy customers. Well, there was a 12 top that someone got overlooked and waited over 2 hours for a table. Wait times here would vary from 45 minutes to 1.5 hours on average during dinner service. You would get a pager and could go visit the other stores and shops at the downtown destination while you waited. Well, the family, I am told, was upset. After everyone is seated, I get started lightening the mood and welcoming them and launch into tour guide, order taker mode, suggesting some bomb appetizers and drinks as I go around the table. Workflow here demanded an intro within 45 seconds of being sat and drinks on the table within 3 minutes. Appetizers on table within 10. We moved fast. My table turnover rate was an average of 45 minutes. This is important. I drop off the drinks and begin to take entree orders. As I finish, customer Bill shakes his now empty glass of water, now only ice, that I set down literally 1 minute earlier, at me and says, "Hey Kavian, when you have a minute." "Sure Bill. I'll get right on that." We had a touchscreen POS system that was pretty consistent, so you could actually get ahead of the system before the screen could refresh. So if you knew where everything was on the screen, you could enter orders and be done before the system caught up. I finish entering the 12 tops order, process a payment for another table, print the final check for a third, and make desserts for my last one. I come out with a full tray, drop off the card slip, check, and desserts. I let 12 top know their appetizers will be out in just a few minutes and point out a few cool movie things they could see hanging from the ceiling. Customer Bill again rattles the ice in his empty glass at me and says, "Hey Kavian," much to the annoyance of the rest of his group. I look him dead in the eye and stated, "I know. I just haven't had a minute," and walked off. I brought him a refill with the appetizers. This time, I brought 2 glasses. I drink a lot of water with meals too, so I understood the thirst. The rest of the party was still laughing about my minute joke when I did. They had a great time. Bill lightened up and was laughing along with everyone else, and they left me a good tip. Next one is titled, "She Needs to Wear Makeup? Okay, she'll go for the natural look." One of the first jobs my wonderful mother had was in the retail industry. Most retail brands will ask you to wear clothing similar to the style being sold, dress fashionably, and so on. This one went a step further. They asked all their female employees to wear makeup. My mother wasn't one to wear makeup at that point in her life. She found it a waste of time and money, and she did fine with the job and was actually later promoted for working well. Well, the upper management thought that her hard work was less important than the fact that she didn't wear makeup. They directly came to her and requested that she wear makeup. She refused, but they kept asking. Finally, they stipulated that if she would wear at least mascara, then they would stop with the harassment. She agreed. The next day my wonderful mother walked in wearing her brand new, clear mascara. She very proudly wore it every day after that, and the management couldn't say a thing, as she was indeed wearing mascara. Last one is titled, Force an Atheist to Read a Prayer? I'll pick just the right one. Years ago, I went to a Catholic high school. I was also an atheist. Not an in-your-face, douchey atheist. I just didn't believe in God and wasn't going to lie about it. They offered a solid education, it's part of the curriculum. I had a lot of Catholic friends, so I'm obviously not going to be a jerk about it. I had no issue showing up at Mass and being respectful, taking 4 years of religion courses, or doing community service. But that didn't mean I wanted to lead the prayer. I didn't really mind saying a few words, but reading from the Bible never sat well with me and felt disingenuous. Luckily, most teachers were awesome and I could respectfully opt out. But at least once a year, some teacher would absolutely insist that I get up and read from one of the many beautiful passages you should know by now. Okay. I would walk to the front, say the traditional greeting, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then I would read 2 Kings chapter 2 verse 23 to 34. From there Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town and jeered at him. "Get out of here, Baldy," they said. "Get out of here, Baldy." He turned around, looked at them and called down a curse on them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. For times I didn't feel like going with 42 children being brutally mauled by bears for making fun of a bald guy. There was another passage that was, somehow, often a more appropriate read. Deuteronomy chapter 25 verse 11 to 12. If 2 men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no mercy. And then I'd finish up with the sign of the cross and head back to my seat. And what do you know? My turn to say prayer never seemed to come around again. Thanks for listening.